there's a push to end the grocery tax. Can you explain to us the grocery tax and like why it's unique that we have that?
And Alabama is one of only 4 states in the nation that fully taxes groceries, which means that in most of the state, people are paying an additional 10 or 11% for their groceries in taxes. And like I said, the vast majority of states do not tax groceries. And we have been trying to end the grocery tax for years. There is a bill pending now at the legislature that Senator Andrew Jones has introduced that would eliminate the grocery tax. The catch has never been ending the grocery tax, it's been replacing the revenue. Because once we end the grocery tax, we pull about $400 million, maybe closer to $500 million now, out of the education budget. And we don't want to do that. The legislature doesn't want to do that. Clearly, educators don't want to do that. So we have to replace that revenue. Alabama Rise has had a proposal to replace the revenue in a way that would not hurt ordinary working people, but it would ask the rich to pay additional taxes in order to give everybody a break on their grocery taxes. That hasn't passed. Senator Jones has a bill that would do exactly that, and we're really, really hoping it passes this year.
Have you been able to get a feel? What is it specifically? You said that the tax is going to the burden is going to fall on the wealthier people. What is is it like a income tax on the top whatever, or is it a property tax, or what is it?
It is effectively an income tax increase for the richest. Alabama is also one of very few states that allows people to deduct their federal income taxes from their income before they calculate their state income tax. It's called the federal income tax deduction, or we call it the FIT. And of course, because the federal income tax is progressive, the rich pay more in federal income taxes than do people who are, working for a living and don't have a lot of money. So they get the benefit of the federal income tax deduction. We have proposed getting rid of the FIT completely, which would increase taxes on the very top 1%, really on people who are millionaires or close there too, in order to take the sales tax off groceries. Senator Jones' bill would cap the amount of money people can deduct when they calculate their state income taxes to, I believe it's $4,000 per person. So it's kind of a compromise, and we hope it'll be more palatable.
And what's been the reception to this idea among the Republican majority?
Well, we don't know yet because the bill was just introduced a couple of days ago, and as we know, they're getting ready to go into a special session. So we will see what the reaction will be. We hope this is a moderate approach. We're running some numbers now to see how much it will cost and who it will cost. And so we should know more in a week or so.
Have there been any other proposals? About ways to make up the difference?
Oh my, yes, there have been over the years, almost all of which Arise has not supported. There was
That's
a proposal. Yeah, I know. There was a proposal a couple of years ago to basically increase the sales tax on everything else. So instead of paying sales tax on groceries, you'd pay them on your kids' tennis shoes. We didn't think that was reasonable. That was also going to be a burden on the people who could least afford to pay. And we really felt that we don't need any more regressive taxes in the state. We need progressive taxes where ability to pay determines how much you do pay. There have also been proposals to simply take the sales tax off groceries. And I should say all along, we're talking about the state portion of the sales tax, which is about 4% of cost. We are not talking the counties and the city's portion of the sales tax, simply because we can't bankrupt local government. Because Alabama doesn't have home rule for localities, we don't want to shut down our county commissions or our city governments by taking away a tax revenue that they do have. So we're talking about a 4%.
But would it even be in the? I thought that localities set their own locality sales tax. Do they? I mean, like, would it even be something that the state legislature could do to take away the local sales tax?
Yeah, they could do it. And they could do it. Actually, Senator Jones' bill is a constitutional amendment, which, certainly would trump any local authority. So, yeah, we could prohibit the localities from collecting sales tax on groceries and allow them to raise sales tax on other things. Again, we don't think that that's particularly helpful to people. There have been proposals to simply take the sales tax off groceries and let the education budget take the hit. And we, again, have thought that our schools are struggling so much, and particularly right now, our schools are struggling, that pulling $500 million out of their budgets just, is not a solution.
Right.
I wanted to jump in here because if for those of you listening or watching, if you haven't seen this plan that Alabama Arise has put out that Carol mentioned, I really encourage you to check it out. Arise, their team has done a great job putting together some graphics and showing you exactly who would pay more taxes and who would pay less. And I distinctly remember, getting the flyer in the mail and seeing it all laid out visually, that the vast majority of us in Alabama would actually pay a little less in taxes because, again, it's being able to write off your federal income taxes is really just helping the top. And for most of us, that deduction is not going to trump what we're paying in grocery taxes, every day, every week, every time we're going out and buying food for our family. So, and I get that the current legislation being discussed by Senator Jones is a little different than that. It's a little bit of a compromise measure, but it's really a common sense plan.
Right.
It's a way to where you could not only replace that revenue and make sure the schools are made whole in this adjustment, but actually have additional revenue for the state to be able to use on something like expanding Medicaid or other, good, legitimate funding purposes that we've discussed here today. So, again, I just want to encourage folks to check that out. It's not at all a radical proposal. It's a very common sense proposal that for most of us would mean slightly less paid taxes every year, but would mean, an extra help for those of us on the lowest end of the income spectrum, much less of a hit every time you go to Walmart, Kroger, Publix. Meanwhile, you're talking about a very modest increase for those who can certainly most afford it. And I'm just going to editorialize here a sec. I'm disappointed that I don't see more from the education community to come out loud in support of a proposal like this. Because as a former educator myself, I know how important it is that the families we're serving in our public schools be able to afford a decent life. This is one way to provide some direct material help to the lowest income families so that they can make sure their cupboards and fridges are stocked, so they have more money to spend on clothes, other bills that they have, whatever they may need to do to have a decent quality of life. So this is a way we can impact the quality of life of the families being served by public schools. And it's a way to ensure that this issue is resolved, it's off the table, and it's a way to ensure that the Education Trust Fund benefits while the rest of the state also benefits. And I think in Alabama, the education community has been very shy about speaking on broader issues of the political economy and really connecting the dots between the poverty and other quality of life issues we suffer here in the state and the academic performance. because the state of Alabama and its leadership love to, do these report cards and failing school lists and other ways to, show to the public that using their metrics, our public schools are inadequate. And yet the very obvious thing, the thing you learn in like Education 101, your first class in College of Education, is the way in which socioeconomic factors outside of school determine what's really happening inside the school. It's no surprise that the schools that are quote unquote failing also happen to be the ones that are almost entirely poor students, almost entirely racial minorities, higher percentage of English language learners, and on and on. It's very common sense, but it's something that, I'd like to see the education community get a little bit more vocal and really partner with groups like Arise to enact some broader tax reform so that we can actually start to address some of these issues before these kids get to school. Because yeah, go ahead, Carol.
Oh, I was just going to say, it's a real truism that a hungry child can't learn. And given the increased cost of food, because of inflation, it's really, this is the time to do this. This is the equivalent of 2 more weeks of groceries for families. And I agree with you. We wish the education community could support this. We think they will come out ahead. Actually, that income taxes are more stable than sales taxes. I think there is a bit of a, bird in the hand attitude that giving up revenue, expecting it to get replaced is scary. I understand that, but it's still the right thing to do. And you're right, for families, and I think for schools, it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, exactly. And then I think that the irony of the only states that the only states that have grocery taxes are ostensibly anti-tax Republican states. I think that kind of shows who they don't want to tax. It's not that they have a principal opposition to taxation, it's that they have a principal opposition to taxation of their donors and of the people that they represent, which is not working people. And it's so frustrating, and I can't, we've gone a decade with Republican supermajority governance in Alabama, and they have cut lots of taxes, but they have not cut this tax. And we've been okay with this tax being on the poorest people in the state, and the idea that we would even be hesitant to shift that tax onto people who can more readily afford it. If we're going to have the tax at all, then we should have it on the people who can afford it, as opposed to the most poor people in our society. Support for this program also comes from the Iron Workers Local 477. So if you are looking for contractors with lower than average EMR and TRIR, they tell me that if you need to know what those mean, then you will. Or if you need to supplement a workforce at any level for any amount of time, short or long term, if you need iron workers that come trained and certified at no extra cost, or if you need workers from superintendent down to general laborer, and you're looking to start work on a project, or you're unhappy with your current contractor situation, you need to call my friend Jeb Miles with the Iron Workers Local 477. They only work with the best in the business, vetted contractors, and can do all kinds of jobs, from roofing to steel and bridge erection, from welding to heavy rigging, from structural repairs to machinery alignment, and much more. They supply manpower on 4 of the 5 largest projects in North Alabama, so you know they're legit. If you need good quality, safe, efficient, diligent, and knowledgeable workers on your job, then you need the Iron Workers Local 477. call Jeb Miles at 256-383-3334 or via email at local477@bellsouth.net, and make sure you tell them that you heard about them on the Valley Labor Report.